Do we want to go through those penalties one by one?
Let's do it.
Yes. Okay.
Sure, why not?
Okay. So starting with the Norris versus Perez incident, I'm going to let Andy start this one.
So, all right. So we're going into treacherous turn 4, which apparently is this corner that no one apparently can get right anymore. Norris is on the inside. Perez. This is the first lap after the safety car, so that's actually kind of important. So it is kind of almost like a de facto. There's no DRS. De facto kind of lap 1 reset here. Perez is trying to go around the outside. He is parallel, if not maybe a little bit in front when they get to the corner. Norris clearly on the inside. He is moving across to the outside. Perez basically runs out of room. I don't think at any point he was any more than a smidge in front. The move was clearly not done by the time they got to the corner, and runs onto the green stuff, runs into the gravel. Very, very similar, but different to the move that, and everyone wants to reference Albon Hamilton from the previous year that got the penalty. Albon in that situation is 3/4 to 90% past Lewis, and Lewis hits him with the front wing and spins Albon out. So to me, it's a very, very different type of incident. I don't think it's worth a penalty. I think that's just good, hard racing. I think if I'm going to go to anybody who's the authority on this, when they pull Christian Horner, of all people, onto the broadcast, and he says, well, check it went out there. What else do you expect is going to happen? And then that happens. I don't know. I understand maybe even taking a look at it just to see. But when the investigation graphics went away, I'm like, okay, here's the no further action is necessary graphic. And then the 5-second penalty comes up. What are we teaching? How are we supposed to defend? What is Lando supposed to do? If you want to see a great recap of it, Karun Shandak on Sky Sports, it's probably on their YouTube or Facebook channel, does a great side-by-side breakdown of that entire incident. And he's basically telling that what the stewards wanted Lando to do was to go so far to the inside that he would have had no choice but to give up that position. Now, last time I thought it was a race and you're supposed to, fight it out until it's kind of done. If I get a smidge in front and that's just move done, that can't be right. It can't be right.
I just also want to point out, so I was going back and watching the onboard. In on the safety car restart, in turn 1, Lando pushed him out wide, and he went off over the curb, kind of into the runoff. I think if there is not gravel in that corner, there is not a penalty. Then you're looking at something like Hamilton and Verstappen and Bahrain, saying Verstappen gains a lasting advantage. Like, the only reason there's a penalty there is because he went into the gravel and that kind of dropped him back. It's not standard really over different circuits or even different corners on the same exact track, which I think just makes it all the more confusing.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. It's funny enough because I was actually going to weigh in with the similar reason, and they took them 16 laps to sort of decide whether or not it was a penalty or not. And I suppose you can look at it as many times as you want. And I don't think you're ever going to be 100% happy with the decision. The only reason, as Deanna already pointed out, why I thought perhaps you could give a penalty for that is because there's gravel on the outside of turn 4. And as we know, the cars understeer onto the outside. And whilst I accept what is Lando supposed to do in that situation when he's trying to keep the position, they were sort of swapping positions under braking. So it's almost like, well, they're both trying to go for it. And perhaps because there's gravel on the outside, unfortunately for Lando, because he's not able to give Checo any space around the outside for one reason or another, the FIA have just decided to give a penalty. But obviously it made it easier for them when Perez had the same issue with Leclerc and obviously went into Leclerc a little bit. I think it took him 20 seconds.
Well, at that point, you had the precedent. I mean, once you make that as that's your standard, that was no choice. I think I came on and I said, if that's not 5 seconds, I'm out.
Absolutely, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. But Yeah, either way, the stewards were never going to come out looking good on this, because if they didn't give Lando a penalty, I'm pretty sure perhaps some Red Bull fans or other fans will say, "Oh, well, hold on, we can just push cars off the track now. Is that what we can do?" So it was always going to be a lose-lose.
I think this was a great time to bring back the black and white flag from Leclerc's in Monza in 2019. This I think was the perfect situation to throw a black and white flag.
That's a great point. I hadn't even thought about that would have been
absolutely, yeah.
Okay, now we know where the limit is, and if you go over it again, now I'm with you.
There was a black and white flag today, though. Was that Kimi?
And they did say, the FIA, that after...
Who was the black and white flag today? Didn't Kimi get one? Or was it Mazepin?
That was
those are track limits. That was track limits.
Yeah.
It was both.
But they did, But they did say they were going to start using the black and white flag more. But I'll be honest with you, I think I've only ever seen it twice. One yesterday for Mazepin, I think one for Grosjean for track limits last season. I can't remember where, but it was. It might have been. No, I can't remember where it was. But I do remember seeing Grosjean getting the black and white flag for track limits. They use
black and white flags for track limits after 2 offenses, and then third you get a penalty. But for actual dangerous driving, I think it's only the Leclerc that's gotten the black and white flag, and that's when they were like, "Oh, we're going to use it all the time," and then they just never did.
Yeah, and that would be the time to use it.
Yeah, I think that's
even though that move in Monza was totally
that's
clean.
the missing solution to the problem.
Okay, so moving on to the other 2 penalties for Perez and Leclerc. So the first one, I think there was some contact on that one, and then the second one, at least to me, it seemed like he kind of lost control of the car, kind of as Leclerc was passing him. But after the race, Perez did say he apologized to Charles, and he had some damage to the front wing as well as older tires. So I think he just had some issues with understeer, and that he didn't like to defend that way. So kind of thoughts on those 2 penalties.
Well, once you make the precedent that first one is a penalty, you have no choice in that case other than to make this one. But I think in aggregate, if I'm looking at all 3 incidents, it's I hate to sound horribly American here, but it's rubbing is racing, and that's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah, I'm with you there,
I
Andy.
love that phrase, but
Yeah.
No, sorry, I love that phrase, Andy, honestly, but every time I hear that, I feel, well, yeah, that's like for stock cars and NASCAR. I don't, like, not for Formula One, like, because you can't really rub each other that much.
True.
Otherwise, a wheel's going to, well, not a wheel fly off, obviously, with the tethers, but, you're going to lose aero piece and everything else. So, as much as I love the analogy, I just don't think that works in Formula One, or at least the stewards don't see it that way.
Oh, that's totally fair. They're not agreeing with me on any of it.
No.
And yeah, I'm with Andy. Like, the fact that they gave Lando one, they had to give that to Sergio as well. And I even texted you guys, like, I don't think it's a penalty, but it's got to be at this point just because of the Lando one. So I know Sergio felt bad, but what are you going to do?
Was that the first one with Leclerc or the second one?
I just kind of wrapped them onto one.
I mean, the second one, I thought, because the only reason I thought they gave it was, as you said, Deanna, was because he sort of understeered halfway through turn 6. But in a way, I kind of felt, well, Charles did sort of try to overtake him quite late into the apex. And I feel like that was one of those I thought was a little bit harsh, because I thought Leclerc could have just backed off, but it's Leclerc, he's going to go for it. And he was running the risk a little bit more. But as you said, Andy, because they set a precedence on it already, and Leclerc had that little bit moment halfway through the apex, they're like, you know what, we've got to give this a penalty. But I was a bit surprised to see them get another 5-second penalty straight afterwards.
Not consistent between different races, but consistent in one race. So I guess that's progress.
Yeah, they won't be inviting those stewards back anytime soon. Bring back Johnny Herbert.
And when he did it, he had, I think, the most incident-free race ever when they put him in there too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.